Welcome to Conversations with Cubit. I am super excited about tonight's conversation. But first, remember to share this page and start a watch party. Do whatever you got to do to get the word out that we're having a conversation. There's only three simple goals for these conversations. Is to add value to people and my community. 2 is to inspire you to believe in what people can become. And 3, period, just love people. All this means is I want you to be...
You go.
What? I'm not on. So, every conversation will be about information, inspiration, and hope. Today is going to be just a little bit different.
Very.
I have been involved in some really deep conversations for the last 2 weeks, and these conversations have been started by House Bill 1775 that the governor signed into law this week. Although these conversations started with House Bill 1775, these conversations quickly moved into conversations about race relations in our state. These conversations have not been easy, I can tell you that. But so today, I want to have a conversation centered on House Bill 1775, but I believe these discussions will unpack a lot more behind that discussion. So today, I'm happy to be joined by my friends Heady Coleman and Bailey Perkins. Thank you all for being here. Let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Coleman. He is pastor of North Church Guthrie, founder of the Go Win brand, and once Citizen of the Year of Guthrie, Oklahoma. He's married to an amazing lady named Bernadette with 3 amazing children. I first met Heady years ago during some local spoken word events, and he hosts this crazy good podcast that will make you a podcast junkie in a heartbeat. He's amazing, and what makes him good at what he does is because he loves people as much as I do. He enjoys learning people's stories, and he loves connecting people's stories so that we can get the greater good out of every single person. This is what he believes he's created to do: create better communities and a better world. He truly just wants you to go further. Then I am joined with Bailey Perkins, who is a millennial strategist, organizer, and consultant and policy advocate. A native of Lawton, she works to shape the state and federal public policy decisions, strengthen civic engagement in Oklahoma, and teaches as an adjunct an American governance professor at a local community college. Her previous work includes leading policy initiatives for a congressional office in Washington, D.C., developing policy advocate strategies for Oklahoma Physical Policy think tank, and producing publications and analysis on education policy in Arkansas. Each Friday, she co-hosts the Let's Pod This Political podcast. The Oklahoma City Friday rated her among the most powerful young professionals in Oklahoma City. She's the big brain on the set today, right? So we're going to be yielding to her. But I knew Bailey long before we actually met because her boo thing is a friend of mine, and he talks so much about it, I had to do a little research and look her up. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guests, Bailey Perkins and Heady Coleman. And the crowd goes wild.
That's for Bailey.
So this is going to be a really good conversation because all 3 of us are podcasters, so we talk. And individually and kind of collectively, we've been talking about House Bill 1775. We didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about it. It seemed like it was a discussion in the community, and then it's a law.
Yeah.
It kind of happened very, very fast. Before we really dive into that, Heady, you're a community guy. Everybody, you've probably seen Heady greeting you going into somebody's event or something, right? You can tell us a little bit about that. But the community aspect, why is this such a big issue in your conversations as you try to community build? What has it been like?
Yeah, I mean, when you're thinking about community building, at least for me, it's about bringing all people together. And so whenever there's something that comes out and we don't quite understand it, there can be this quick divide almost because people really don't know what's going on. And so, I mean, a lot of my conversations with people are just really trying to get their perspective on what they think the bill really means. And it's been all over the place, right? And so I'm asking my white brothers, I'm asking my black brothers, I'm just talking to everybody like, what do you think this means? Where does this take you mentally? Because mentally this can take you a lot of different places, right?
Man.
And so I just really want to make sure that whenever I'm in these conversations with the people in my community and beyond that, that it's at a place that we're really just seeking to understand in order to kind of continue to move forward together.
So it's important to you because it immediately, because it's a lot of misunderstanding. And it's divisive. So it's important to you because you're not, everything you do is Go Win is about, talk to us about Go Win real quick. And
yes, so Go Win, man, just like the quick story is it started as a hashtag because I just love to encourage people. And so whenever I end a text or whenever I hang up with people on the phone or walking away from them in the grocery store or posting on social media, I would always just say Go Win because I figure everybody understands what it means to win. Then we all know what it means to go. And so I'm just like, hey, just go win. Like, live your life in this way. And then people was like, well, what does it mean, really? And so I came up with a definition. And I defined it, Go Win as being consistent in doing the right things that allow for you to achieve the wins that you've defined for your life so you can live out your greatest story.
Yeah.
And all of us have a story, right? But your story is a lot more interesting when you have defined some wins for yourself and you begin to go after those. Now, you may never achieve the wins, but the story is you trying to get to that win. And I find that to be super interesting. And so even with my podcast, is around this idea of having these Go Win conversations so that we can learn from one another, be inspired with one another, and build community.
It's not a hashtag. It's an action item.
Yeah.
Right? It's an action item at this point.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
It is. And so I've been doing that for a number of years now, and I just continue to try to develop it and bring it to a place in people's lives that just helps them go further better.
Yeah. So Bailey, Heady and I were going to just unpack this thing by ourselves. And we quickly realized that's dangerous. It's because we have been in a group chat with one another, and we've been in conversations with one another, and I would take what I've said here and share. And then there's language and there's policy, and everybody wants to. Everybody that I talk to, that I don't talk to on a regular basis, but we're in a relationship, but we're not an everyday kind of. They said, "Have you read the bill? Do you even understand what it's all about?" As if they did more research on it than I have.
Yeah.
That's been a very common question for those who have raised concerns about the language.
Okay, so that's why you're here. Help us understand the language, and please Heady and I, we want to make it simple.
Absolutely.
We are some simple guys.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
So the core of this bill ties to two things. The first part bans colleges, public colleges and universities from requiring diversity trainings. So that's the first part of the bill. The second part of the bill.
I got to take notes. I'm taking notes because I already got a question, but I don't want to mess up the flow, right? Go ahead.
The second part of the bill connects to K through 12 public institutions. And so it outlines concepts that teachers are not allowed to teach, and different concepts that teachers cannot bring up in classrooms. And so on the surface, when you read the different bullet points of, one race is not greater than another race, or you can't make someone feel bad about the past, etc., it seems like, okay, that makes sense on the surface. But the challenge is that when we're talking about the past, it does feel uncomfortable, right? In understanding how decisions were made in policy that then shape what's happening today.
Does it actually say to make people feel bad? What is the language that is, how does...
It's somewhere around that, and let me actually pull up the specific bill language because that is in there. And so I do want to bring out four pieces that raise concern about the legislation. That's important for those who are tuning in to know. That first of all, this bill isn't a specific response to anything that has happened in Oklahoma. There hasn't been an instance of a parent or a student complaining about being taught about critical race theory.
So you're saying this kind of out of the blue, this bill comes about to address no problem that has existed?
It's actually not even out of the blue. This is what we call model legislation, meaning that some national organization or some entity outside of Oklahoma is pushing that this legislation needs to happen. And so Oklahoma is one of 8 states that have taken up comparable legislation to address what's called divisive topics. In 2019, there was a project called the 1619 Project to commemorate the 400th year since Africans were enslaved in this country.
Landed in this country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there was controversy on people who didn't want to talk about it in that way and were pushing back against the narrative of how the country was built not only on stolen lands, but through forced labor of enslaved Africans. And so there was an effort from the previous administration to change this narrative from the 1619 Project to the 1776 Commission to talk about America in a positive light, because the rationale is that if we talk about the past in this way, it's making America seem like a bad place. It's making white people feel bad for, what has happened over time. And so when our new president, President Biden, came into office, he rescinded that executive order. So after that executive order was rescinded, maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, we saw a rise of states looking to codify what would have been in that 1776 commission. And so this is first tied to a national effort of someone pointing to the concepts of critical race theory to say, we don't like the way this is being taught. We don't like the ways people are talking about what has happened in America's past and the way that they're connecting it to, the present and solutions of the future. And so that led to Oklahoma lawmakers then filing, and there were a few bills this session related to that were filed. The second piece that I want to lift that's important is that while this is allegedly connected to critical race theory, there's nothing in the bill that says critical race theory specifically. And so there isn't clear consensus on what the bill actually accomplishes, because some of the proponents are saying we don't want critical race theory being taught in class. But when you really look at the components of what critical race theory is trying to say, there are people who would likely agree with it if they were actually exposed to it. So there are probably members of the Oklahoma legislature who are saying we don't want that, who have never even been exposed to the tenets of critical race theory. For example, one of the tenets is talking about how race is a social construct, something that we weren't born with, but political decisions were decided on who was going to be labeled as what.
It's made up.
It's made up. That's the core of that critical race theory. Conversations about how power had been designed and how policy had been structured, right? So we can't talk about Oklahoma's history without talking about that lens of who was decided as being segregated in communities, right? Who was